Okay, you're welcome back. It's still the African University Week Celebration 2024, and this year's we're looking at the year of education. And if you've joined right from the beginning, you've seen that there is a lot of fireworks. The energy right from the first session was enormous. We had a lot of discussions and insights shared about how we could use AI responsibly. And we had a lot of views about how we could clinch to data privacy, also training the educators on how they could use AI and help students appreciate AI and not rely on it fully. Rather, they could also add their views and make something meaningful, which has integrity through the use of AI. And that was it for the morning session with Dr. A.G.E.N.D.A, who is from the University of Nottingham, data privacy and also AI experts. And we also had some supporting members from the participant pool who also joined the discussion, making it so interesting and so interactive. And the second session was about to start just now is equally an amazing one, which is also going to be coordinated by my very elegant and very eloquent Catherine Bailey from the Ethical Data Initiative. Hello, Catherine, can you hear me?
Hello, A.G.E.N.D.A. Yes, I absolutely can. You are too kind, I have to say. But I've been very much enjoying your comparing. It's been absolutely fantastic.
Spot on. You're looking so spot on today. And the baton has passed to you. So you can go ahead and tell us what's up for this morning.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the event that is about to take place now is part of the Ethical Data Discussion Series, which is organised by the Association of African Universities in collaboration with the University of Nottingham and the Ethical Data Initiative, which is an innovative partnership between the University of Exeter in the UK and the Technical University of Munich in Germany. So I'd like to welcome you all to this event today and to this sixth instalment of the Ethical Data Discussion Series. My name is Catherine Bailey. I'm Professor of Research Governance and Partnerships at the University of Exeter and Operations Director at the Ethical Data Initiative. I'll be your moderator today alongside our wonderful A.G.E.N.D.A from the Association of African Universities, who will be handling audience questions. Thank you very much. The Ethical Data Discussion Series addresses crucial issues related to digital technology, data collection, and data-driven research. And previous discussions have included topics such as data ethics policy in higher education, human rights in the platform economy, gender bias, the ethics of AI in higher education, and most recently, child protection in the age of AI. And you can find recordings of these earlier episodes on the AAU TV website, the AAU YouTube channel, or the Ethical Data Initiative website. And as we acknowledge the significant digital transformation of our global society, I know that you've been talking about this earlier today, it is clear that Africa has played an active role in this evolution. And while this shift has led to positive outcomes like improved decision-making and problem-solving, it's also introduced various challenges and questions that affect all of us, albeit in different ways. And understanding how our data is utilised and stored, our responsibilities concerning data, and how changing laws affect us is important. So to support this, we've launched the Data Ethics in Education campaign, and this campaign seeks to promote the incorporation of data ethics into all data science, ICT, and research-based higher education courses. It aims to educate the future generation of data and research professionals on their legal and ethical responsibilities concerning data use, reuse, and sharing. And we'll share more details about the campaign, including how you can participate after the webinar. Today, our topic is building resilient education systems through responsible research and innovation, and we have an absolutely fantastic panel lined up for you today. Building resilient education systems through responsible research and innovation involves integrating ethical practices and data-driven strategies into educational frameworks. It requires collaboration among stakeholders, including educators, researchers, and policymakers, to create a robust learning environment that adapts to societal changes. By fostering a culture of innovation grounded in responsibility, educational institutions can effectively respond to emerging challenges, enhance teaching and learning outcomes, and prepare students to thrive in an increasingly complex technology-driven world. As emerging technologies such as AI, Internet of Things technologies, and virtual reality reshape research, teaching, and administration, it is essential for universities to create responsible assessment frameworks that maintain academic integrity while also meeting the needs of students, faculty, teachers, and society as a whole. Today, our panel will discuss strategies for reforming research assessment that empower higher education institutions both in Africa and globally. And before I get to introducing our panel, then I believe that Juliette Fundlana, who is the head of the AAU Europe office, is with us today and would like to very quickly say a couple of words of welcome. Juliette, are you here? Okay, I'll carry on then in that case. But yeah, Juliette has been absolutely instrumental in starting this series and in working with us on bringing this series to AAU TV and to yourself. So thank you very much on behalf of all of us. So a few words of housekeeping before we begin today's event. First of all, please note that this event is being live streamed and recording for future viewing on YouTube and AAU TV. And for those of you that are new to the platform, the Association of African Universities launched a television network called AAU TV in 2018 to highlight important higher educations across the continent. Following this introduction, we will transition to the main panel discussion, which will be followed by a question and answer session. We encourage you as the audience to take an active part in the discussion by using the chat function to introduce yourselves, to ask questions and to share your thoughts. But while doing so, we'd like to request that you kindly keep your microphone muted out of respect for our panelists. So now I am very excited to introduce you to the panel of experts who will be participating in today's debate. So in no particular order, we have Professor Evelyn Garvey, who is Associate Dean at the Mohammed VI Polytechnic University, or UM6P as it's perhaps commonly known, in Morocco. She is an expert in education, quality assurance and strategic planning with 30 years of experience, and her transdisciplinary background and leadership in development cooperation initiatives across Africa, Europe and the Asia Pacific region inform her knowledge of building resilient education systems through responsible research and innovation. Frances Crawley is a philosopher with a career in bioethics and expertise in research policy regulation, ethics, integrity and methodology, as well as data and digital technologies. He's certainly a man with many hats. He is chair of the CODATA International Data Policy Committee, chair of the UNESCO CODATA Working Group on Data Policy for Times of Crisis, facilitated by Open Science, co-chair and principal investigator of the EOSC Future RDA Artificial Intelligence and Data Visitation Working Group, co-chair and coordinator of the EC-supported Coalition for Advancing Research Assessment, Ethics, and Research Integrity Policy for the Responsible Research Assessment in Data and Artificial Intelligence Working Group, which is a bit of a mouthful, but we call that COARA-ERIT for short. And also co-chair of Force 11 Working Group on developing research assessment criteria for the use of AI in scientific scholarly publications. Professor George Okeo is Associate Teaching Professor and Director of Academics at Carnegie Mellon University, Africa. He received his PhD in Computer Science from the University of Ulster in the United Kingdom. His thesis explored activity recognition in smart environments using a knowledge-driven lens. Professor Okeo's main research interests and experience are centered on inclusive teaching strategies, AI, machine learning, digital technologies, semantic computing, Internet of Things, and responsible research and innovation. Professor Simisola Akintoye is Associate Professor of Law at Northumbria University School of Law. Her multidisciplinary research covers critical issues at the intersection of law and technology, including data governance, privacy and data protection, ethics of emerging technologies, and RRI. Simi is an international policy practitioner and was the Data Protection Officer for the European Union Future and Emerging Technologies Human Brain Project, which, for those of you that don't know, was a massively funded European project with quite a lot of ethical intricacies. So this is a high accolade. She has been involved in numerous multidisciplinary policy expert reports on the future implications of AI for societal benefit. Her current research investigates legal, ethical, and sociocultural implications of AI in Africa towards developing an inclusive, equitable, and sustainable AI ecosystem for the continent. So without further ado, I'd like to invite our panelists to unmute themselves, and we will begin with the first question. So I'm just checking that everybody is present and correct before we begin. Simi, can you hear me? Okay, you might have to unmute yourself, Simi.
Yeah, it's fine. Thank you very much.
Perfect. So Professor Simisola Akintoye. Francis, are you with us? Okay. So Francis is currently on mission, and he may be having a few issues joining. We may see him a little later. Evelyn, can you hear me? Professor Galway, are you with us? You might need to unmute.
I can hear you. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Hello, welcome. And George, Professor Okeo, are you with us?
Hi, Catherine. Now I'm able to unmute myself. Yes.
Perfect. Welcome. Welcome. So if our technical team could please keep an eye out for Francis Crawley when he arrives, and promote him to the panel, that would be fantastic. So we will begin then with the first question. And our first question today, which I will direct to Professor Akintoye. What specific ethical challenges does digital transformation pose for research assessment in higher education, and how can institutions effectively address them?
Thank you very much. Digital transformation in research assessment brings significant ethical challenges to our education, basically because it reshapes how research impacts, quality, and productivity are evaluated. So I'm going to just briefly run through some of these challenges and perhaps provide some solution that can steer the discussion today. So first up is bias and fairness. Digital tools often favor certain languages. There are disciplines or established researchers that could be in favor of these digital tools, and this could therefore create biases. Algorithms and metrics that are used in digital tools for research assessments can reinforce these biases, such as favoring perhaps publications in English language, high-impact journals, or disciplines with traditionally high citation rates. So this can unfairly disadvantage researchers in less cited disciplines. Those publishing in other languages, early career researchers, those in developing economies such as Africa. So it is really important that institutions can sort of employ diverse metrics that can account for different disciplines, career stages, and consider qualitative assessments like peer reviews alongside quantitative data, regularly auditing algorithms for bias and ensuring transparency in assessment criteria can also help. One other thing that we should also consider as a challenge is, compliance, perhaps in further developed institutions in terms of privacy, data privacy, ethics, and all of that. Collecting and sharing researcher data can raise privacy concerns. The EU GDPR regulations impose strict guidelines, strict standards on data privacy. So researchers' data that are used in assessment would need to comply with these GDPR standards. For example, there are differences of these standards in data management practices for research assessment to ensure compliance with GDPR. So one of the responses or solutions to that would be that we enhance our data protection principles, gaining informed consent for data use, ensuring transparency in data collection and processing, European universities have set the benchmark for safeguarding researchers' data. This has sort of led to improved trust and better protection of sensitive data that can help us to balance the competing interest of, research and innovation with data protection and privacy. Another thing that we should also be mindful of is, the pressure to quantify impact. As researchers in research assessment, digital transformation often leads to an over-reliance on metrics such as H-index, citation counts, that may overlook the broader impact of research on society, on culture, on policy. It can sort of shift the focus towards easily measurable outputs and away from novel or interdisciplinary research that may be slower to sort of show impact. So one of the solutions to that would be, of course, adopting an holistic assessment framework. We've got things like DORA, Declaration of Research Assessment, that can emphasize responsible metrics and diverse forms of impact, incorporating qualitative evaluations such as narrative impact statements, can further add context to these quantitative, scores. And then, of course, we come to developing economies such as Africa. There is a digital divide. We have, open access initiatives, perhaps in African universities. There is the unequal access to digital tools that sort of disadvantages certain researchers and institutions. So it is very important that we are able to promote open access resources, share digital infrastructures, because researchers in developing economies often lack access to high-cost databases. These databases are very expensive, subscription fees are high. These digital assessment tools can be far expensive for researchers in developing economies to sort of adopt, and that limits their ability to meet international assessment criteria. So these are issues that sort of affect developing economies. And we've got some solutions already. Some universities, such as Makerere University and similar institutions, they are sort of investing in open access tools and partnerships, such as the Africa Journal Online, to improve visibility and access. These initiatives aim to bridge the gap between digital resources, enabling equitable assessment by making research outputs more accessible, more visible, even at international levels. We also have issues around transparency, accountability of the algorithms that can make assessments unfair and unaccountable. Many research assessment tools use proprietary algorithms to sort of rank researchers or institutions. These algorithms are often opaque. They leave researchers unaware of how they are being evaluated. You don't know how you have been evaluated for this research, and it can potentially be manipulated or even misunderstood. So one of the ways to sort of address that is institutions can require vendors to disclose algorithmic criteria, or even, when feasible, develop and use open source tools for research assessments. This should also be communicated in terms of the factors used in assessments transparently to researchers, so that you can allow them to understand and sort of verify the fairness of the process. So I've just sort of highlighted few issues around research assessments and how this can be sort of addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Simi. You've given a fantastic overview there of the playing field of research assessment, and a lot of good ideas as to how that can perhaps be addressed. But I'd like to perhaps direct this question towards George now, and put a sort of slightly African stance. I know that, Simi, you've already covered that in your answer. But George, in what ways can stakeholders from various global regions, such as Europe and Africa, collaborate to develop best practices for research assessment that consider local contexts and local challenges?
Yeah, thank you, Catherine, for that question. Collaboration obviously is important in the sense that individuals from these different regions would enrich the collaboration and bring in the local context. Because one of the key challenges really is the situation where you could be researching something, but you walk into the problem. At times, you haven't got a full understanding of it, and you could benefit from participants who are actually collaborating with you, providing the enriching content that is necessary. But this requires that we have a mechanism through which this collaboration can occur. That mechanism is a mechanism where all parties participate in a way that makes them feel some sense that each one's contribution is respected. And I think this at times is one of the biggest challenges, where in some cases there's collaboration, but then maybe on one side it is looking like there is a team that is really pushing, and the ones that are managing this particular collaboration, and the other party is playing a bit part. So the kind of mechanisms for collaboration require that mutual respect for each other, requires that ability for different individuals to make their contribution, requires probably as they're developing, as these ideas are developing, for people to co-create these ideas and build ownership fairly early on. And the reason for this is, as you think of the digital technologies, for instance, that we want to use, we understand that some of the digital technologies have some challenges in terms of the data that fed them. But this data, who will point out these challenges within this data so that it can be addressed? So that's why that co-creation approach, right from when collaborative projects are being built into the execution and even that monitoring, would be very useful in supporting the different stakeholders to research on or to build these collaborations in such a way that we address ethical concerns that affect research, in such a way that we build assessment frameworks that are relevant to the continent of Africa, for instance, but also those that are global in nature, because there are aspects that are typically global in nature, even before you bring in the context. So having participants participating from the different regions would be a way of addressing that.
Thank you very much. Would any of our panelists like to address this question as well? How can stakeholders from various global regions collaborate to develop best practices? Simi, would you like to add more to this question?
Yes, I think one of the important things which was also discussed is the multi-layered level of collaboration that is needed. It is at that stage where there has to be some sort of international partnerships that needs to happen and needs to happen now because we are at the peak of digital transformation globally. It is very important for us, even as emerging economies in Africa, to make sure that we're not left behind in this global discussion around research, around higher education, around technology and digital transformation for education. So this partnership has to happen now. But one thing that I would like to stress is understanding what this means for us within our local context. As Africans, we do have our own digital device that needs to be addressed. We do have issues around quality education that needs to be perhaps addressed at national level. That would then put us at the forefront where we can have discussions within the global context. So I think just to also add to that, international partnerships is important, but also the funding needed for it is one of the things that could be lacking. And these discussions would require a lot of expertise and resources. So it is very important that researchers and academics work together to be able to sort of maybe apply for funding. Universities need to partner with themselves to be able to develop a strength that can help them to, at this level, collaborate, gets to the level where we can be discussing globally issues that affect us in terms of digital transformation. Thank you.
Okay, so what I'm hearing very clearly from all corners of the panel is that it's collaboration, both internationally and interdisciplinarily, that is going to solve really these bigger issues within university management and global governance of research. So moving on to the next question, which I would like to direct to Professor Gawe. How can universities ensure that the benefits of these digital transformation in education are equitably distributed among all students?
Thank you so much for that question. I will start by maybe presenting a bit more about my university, UM6P, which is a polytechnic university that is focused on combining learning, thinking, and doing for the purpose of kickstarting innovation. So our philosophy generally is to talk less, but act more. So effective 22 October this year, we have partnered with OpenAI, the first university in Africa to partner with OpenAI to participate in the design and modeling to roll out what we are calling ChatGPT EDU, as well as Canvas. So these platforms, you know, people, individual researchers or students are paying for the ChatGPT that gives you more, not the open source ones. But our university is providing this to every student and every faculty member, so that we think that using AI and other cutting-edge technologies, we will be able to remove the mundanity from everyday tasks so that we free our students and our community in general to engage in more meaningful, high-impact work. And if I am also to give other examples, you know, in other universities where probably AI is outlawed, people are still using it. So for example, if a lecturer wants to come up with an impactful presentation, what do? They pay for those GPT things, and then they come up with this very nice and engaging presentation. It doesn't necessarily mean that lecturers or students are getting information from ChatGPT. They have the information, but maybe they don't have the time to waste 2 days trying to craft something into a visual when there are tools that can do this for you. So our university recognizes this and has actively captured this and is actually working together with Canva also for visuals. So our community is very happy about this. How do we address the issues of ethics? The university makes sure that before you even register for that platform, you have to agree with the charter, you have to agree with the code of ethics, you have to agree with the guidelines for best practices for use of generative AI, as well as the terms of use. And then you are kept on guided by this. But in addition to that, suppose you want to push through maybe confidential information about the university. The moment you put it in your prompt, you don't get any answer. You get an answer to say the terms and conditions of use do not allow us to work on your prompt. That's about the ethics. What else are we doing? We have a support plan. Of course, we realize that our students and our faculty might be at different levels of understanding how effectively to use these platforms. So the policy office, every week, they roll out resources as well as guidance seminars. They bring in global experts from Africa, from outside Africa, to come and train, as well as to make sure that our staff and students are actually also generating data to feed in these platforms using machine learning. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's a wonderful explanation of what's going on. And I would add to that as well, that kind of employers out there in the private sector need these skills. They need graduates to be coming out of university, being able to use these technologies. And I think it is beholden really upon both private sector employers and universities to really be working together about how this can be done as well. But thank you, Evelyn. That was really enlightening. Simi, do you have anything to add to this question?
Yes, I mean, it's quite interesting to see how this plays out, particularly within the local context of Africa or across the globe. I think one thing that is really important, of course, is educating students, staff, to be able to be responsible in how this is adopted and to sort of get the benefits of digital transformation while still promoting research and innovation. And it's something that is going to take a long time before we get to a point where we can effectively say we are there. But the education aspect of it, I think, is a good starting point.
Thank you very much. And George, Professor Okeo, I know that you have a few words to say on this. Please.
Yeah, I think there are only probably two things that I'll add. So obviously, institutions really need to think of those individuals who may not have the access, because you need to give the same level of access. If you have a set of students, for instance, who are only able to use the free version, and you have another set of students who are able to use the versions that are paid for, then obviously you're already creating inequity in terms of how they can use these resources. So obviously there's some effort that institutions need to put in place, first from the guidelines to support the use of this, and investing in the necessary resources such that there is equity in terms of the access that people need. Another thing that maybe I could talk about is probably considering the idea of open educational resources. This is right from software and other educational materials, and essentially making this available so that people can then access these resources, not necessarily when they're online. When they're online, maybe when they're offline, there are different versions of the resources that they're able to use. I think that would be important in helping realize equitable access. And maybe just the last comment on this is, as we do all of this, I think we need to be alert to data privacy and protection. Because with the data privacy and protection, this is how we'll know that this is a kind of material that you are not supposed to feed into this generative AI prompt, as an example. Some institutions, for instance, would be prohibiting their members from actually using some kind of information from those institutions on generative AI tools. So awareness about how you could use this data, about how you need to find out if you could use it, would be important to avoid a situation where access becomes limited because there is abuse of that particular access. So that is, for now, what I would add.
Excellent. Some very, very good points. But I'd like to dig into something that you did mention there in your answer, which was around the digital divide, really. And I'd like to direct this to Professor A.G.E.N.D.A. So what role does responsible research governance play in mitigating this digital divide and ensuring equitable access to quality education for all?
Thank you. So responsible research governance in universities is indeed essential to mitigating the digital divide and ensuring equitable access to quality education. Universities play a pivotal role in shaping research practices, distributing resources, and creating educational opportunities that are inclusive and accessible to all students. So one of the ways that this can be done is expanding digital access and infrastructure on campus. Universities with responsible governance should prioritize investments in essential digital infrastructures, such as high-speed internet, digital libraries, research databases, especially in areas where students may lack personal access to technology. And for Africa, this is something that would really need a lot of investment, because by doing so, ensuring that campus facilities are equipped with necessary tools and resources, universities will enable students and researchers from all socio-economic backgrounds to participate fully in academic life. And this would be valuable for students in remote or underserved areas who rely on campus resources for digital access, areas where they have limited internet access that can help them within the university community. Another thing is to develop and enforce open access policies for research outputs. Universities with responsible governance will often implement open access policies that will make their own research outputs freely accessible, freely available online. And this would sort of help in terms of repositories that can encourage faculty to publish in these open access journals. This can benefit students and researchers at the universities because it's going to reduce the financial barriers to knowledge, and it would encourage wider dissemination of scholarly outputs, research, and innovation. It would also foster inclusivity because it would allow students and the faculty to engage with broader range of research. Another thing is equitable research assessment framework. Creating this equitable research assessment frameworks would help to rethink how research is evaluated, to ensure that it values the variety of contributions beyond the traditional metrics such as impact factors, like I said before. So universities can adopt frameworks such as the DORA, that can help to guide research assessment practices. Another issue another way of promoting this is to sort of foster open educational resources and digital literacy initiatives at different university levels. We can be able to sort of develop digital literacy programs that can ensure students and the faculty are well equipped. So trainings, programs, and initiatives that can create the necessary equipment that can sort of provide a conducive atmosphere that can navigate and make use of digital tools and resources effectively. So students will be in that learning environment. They can understand how this can be. And we can integrate this into the curriculum. So universities can integrate, open educational resources into the curriculum to help reduce costs for students that would want to maybe do this elsewhere or go through this training. It would help make quality and educational materials accessible to all. So digital literacy programs that can prepare students for modern research methods, digital collaboration, information management. These are essential skills in global workforce and academia that students will need to incorporate, that can make higher education more equitable and helping students, particularly from diverse backgrounds, to sort of succeed. And then, of course, encouraging inter-university collaboration, resource sharing. Universities that would want to develop responsible governance would engage in partnership with other institutions, share ideas, share research data, expertise, best practices. For example, partnerships that can involve joint access to digital libraries, collaborative research projects, shared access to high-cost databases. This would broaden the resources and increase research opportunities for institutions with limited budgets, institutions in low socioeconomic backgrounds or areas that do not have the resources to sort of facilitate the digital libraries and collaborations. Universities in developing regions will particularly benefit from these partnerships because it would help them to gain access to tools, platforms that can sort of otherwise be financially out of reach. So these collaborations can foster cross-cultural learning and diverse perspectives that can enrich academic experience for students globally and particularly in developing economies. So I'm going to stop it at there. I don't know if any of my colleagues want to add anything to what I've been said.
That's absolutely fantastic. And you've kind of brought up, not just the challenges there, but also so many fantastic solutions that could be put into place to mitigate those potential issues. Professor A.G.E.N.D.A, would you like to add to that?
I'll pass. Thank you.
So in that case, unless Professor Okeyo has something to say around that, I can see you've unmuted yourself. No. Would you like to add? No, then we'll move on to the next question. I think that you summarized that absolutely brilliantly. Thank you, Professor Akintoye. There is a comment here in the chat, which is, absolutely true. So gender equity and equality